He left me and our two little boys when I was diagnosed with cancer. My name is Sarah. I was 28 when I married the man I thought I'd spend forever with. His name was Daniel. Kind eyes, a steady job, a laugh that made strangers smile. We met at a bookstore. He reached for a book I had in my hands, and somehow we started a conversation about poetry, of all things. 6 months later, we were inseparable. 1 year later, engaged. 2 years later, we were married in a small garden surrounded by our closest friends and family. We weren't perfect, but we were in love. At least I believed we were. I still remember our vows. His hands shook as he held mine. He promised to love me in sickness and in health. And when I whispered, "I do," I meant it with every piece of my heart. 2 years into our marriage, we were blessed with twin boys, Micah and Noah. Beautiful, identical, loud. They lit up our world. I stayed home to care for them. He worked longer hours to provide. We were exhausted, but grateful. There were late-night feedings and laundry mountains and whispered arguments over nothing. But there were also giggles in the bathtub, story time on the floor, warm coffee shared in silence before the boys woke up. I thought, this is what happiness looks like. But life has a way of testing what you believe in, and I wasn't ready for the test that came next. It started with a lump. One morning in the shower, I felt something small, something that wasn't there before. At first, I told myself it was nothing, maybe just stress, a cyst, hormonal, but deep down, something in me knew. I scheduled an appointment. They ran tests, more tests, and then came the call. "Can you come in tomorrow? Bring someone with you?" I knew before they even said the words. My hands went numb, my knees buckled. Daniel came with me. The doctor's voice was calm, but the words were bullets. Breast cancer, stage 2, aggressive. I don't remember much after that. It just Daniel's hand squeezing mine, the sound of my heart pounding in my ears, and the voice in my head screaming, "What about my babies?" I was 30, too young, they said, but it didn't matter. Cancer doesn't care about your age, your dreams, or your babies. We began treatment immediately. Chemotherapy, surgery plans, more tests. Daniel said he'd be there every step. And for a while, he was. He held my hair as I got sick, made my tea in the mornings, whispered, "We'll get through this," into my bald scalp as I cried on his shoulder. But cancer doesn't just attack your body, it seeps into everything, your sleep, your marriage, your identity, and eventually it came for us too. A chemo was brutal. They prepare you for the physical side effects, the nausea, the fatigue, the hair loss. But no one prepares you for the loneliness, for the long hours lying in bed while the world continues without you, for the quiet in your own home that used to be filled with laughter. At first, Daniel was there. He'd drive me to appointments, help with the kids. He even bought me a silk scarf when I lost my hair. I cried when he tied it gently around my head and said, "You're still beautiful." But as the months passed, something changed. He started working later. He stopped coming to my treatments, stopped asking how I was feeling, stopped sitting with me during the hard days. One night, I asked him if he was okay. He looked at his phone, shrugged, and said, "I'm just tired." Tired. I wanted to scream. "You're tired? Try fighting for your life every day." But I didn't scream. I just nodded. Because I didn't have the strength to fight anything but the cancer. Soon he moved to the guest room. He said I needed rest. But rest is hard when your marriage is unraveling 2 doors away. The boys noticed. They'd ask why Daddy didn't sit with us for movie night, why he didn't laugh like he used to. I lied, said he was busy, said he still loved us. And deep down, I wanted to believe that too. But then came the night he didn't come home. At 1:24 a.m., I sat in the living room wrapped in a blanket, my chest aching, not from the chemo, but from silence. I texted him. No reply. Then came a message from a friend the next morning. I saw Daniel. He wasn't alone. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. I wanted it to be a lie, but suddenly everything made sense. The coldness, the distance, the disappearing. Later that day, I checked our bank statement. There were charges I didn't recognize. Restaurants, a hotel. He hadn't even bothered to hide it well. I waited for him to come home. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just waited. When he finally walked in, I asked him plainly, "Is there someone else?" He didn't answer. Not at first. He sat down, rubbed his temples, and whispered, "I can't do this anymore." I said, I didn't ask if you could do this. I asked if you cheated. And that's when he looked at me, truly looked, and said the words that broke me more than cancer ever did. Yes. And I want a divorce. He packed a bag and left the next morning. No explanation to the boys, no hugs, no goodbye. He just walked out of the door like he was leaving a job he hated. Micah and Noah were only 5, old enough to notice when something changed. Too young to understand why. They asked where Daddy was going. I told them he needed time, that he loved them, and he'd still see them, even though I didn't know if that was true. That night, I collapsed onto the kitchen floor. I wasn't strong. I wasn't brave. I was broken. I screamed into my scarf, sobbed until my chest hurt, felt like I was dissolving, one cell at a time. I was still in the middle of chemo, still losing my hair, still too weak to climb stairs without resting halfway. But now I had 2 babies depending on me, and I was alone, completely, terrifyingly alone. Days blurred into weeks. I kept going, not because I was strong, but because I didn't have a choice. The boys needed breakfast, they needed school drop-offs, cartoons, bedtime stories. So I woke up, even when my body screamed, even when my pillow was soaked with tears. Some mornings I'd whisper to myself in the mirror, just make it to 10 a.m., then noon, then bedtime. That's how I lived. Hour by hour, pain by pain, prayer by prayer. I started keeping a journal, not to write about cancer, but to write letters to my future self. I didn't know if I'd make it there, but I wanted to believe she existed. The next 15 years were a mix of survival and small victories. There were surgeries, setbacks, days when I couldn't walk from the bed to the bathroom without stopping to breathe. But there were also birthdays, laughter, growth. I watched my sons grow into men, kind, funny, protective. They saw me cry, but they also saw me fight. They never once looked at me like I was broken. And that healed me more than medicine ever could. I went back to work, slowly, first as a receptionist, then at a local nonprofit. Then I took classes online at night after the boys fell asleep. One day I saw a flyer for a breast cancer support group. I went, and for the first time in years, I sat in a room full of women who understood. We cried together, laughed through pain, shared wigs and tea and wisdom. Eventually, someone asked if I would speak at an event. "Your story matters," she said. At first I said no, I didn't think I had a story. I thought I had a mess. But one night, as I was tucking in my boys, I realized maybe my mess was my message. So I stood on that stage and shared it, shaking hands, cracked voice, tears on my notes. But people listened, people cried, people came up to me and said, "You gave me hope." And for the first time in a long time, I felt proud. Starting over at 40 wasn't glamorous. It was lonely, it was exhausting, it was humbling. There were nights I couldn't sleep because I didn't know if I'd make rent. Mornings I'd stare at the ceiling, wondering if my life had already passed me by. But then I'd hear footsteps, my boys getting ready for school, and I'd remember, I had purpose. I applied for a small loan to open a boutique. Nothing fancy, just a cozy little shop selling handmade crafts, healing teas, scarves like the ones I once wore during chemo. People came not just to buy, but to talk, to cry, to feel seen. Some were cancer survivors, some were heartbroken, some were simply tired of being strong all the time. And little by little, I realized I wasn't rebuilding a business, I was rebuilding myself. The support group women helped me decorate the place. We painted the walls soft peach and hung string lights by the windows. We put a tiny plaque by the register that said, "You are not alone here." It became more than a store. It became a sanctuary. And every time someone left with a smile, I felt like I was healing all over again, not because life was perfect, but because I was no longer pretending I had to be. My boys are grown now. They're taller than me, stronger than me. They still call every night to check in. We don't talk about their father much. He sends a card once in a while, birthdays, holidays, no real effort, no apology. But that's okay, because I stopped needing closure from someone who walked away from their role in my story. I used to dream he'd come back, not to be with me, but to say, sorry. Now, I don't need the apology, because the life I've built is louder than his silence. I have peace now. I wake up early, drink my tea, stretch on the porch as the sun rises. There are still scars on my body, on my heart, but they don't hurt like they used to. They're just proof that I lived through something hard and didn't stay broken. I still get tired, still have days where the weight of it all comes rushing back, but now I know how to breathe through it. Now I know I'm not alone. If you've listened this far, maybe you're walking through your own storm. Maybe someone left you in the dark. Maybe your health is failing. Maybe your heart feels like it's beyond repair. But let me tell you something I wish someone had told me years ago. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not too old to start over. You can survive betrayal. You can survive illness. You can survive being left when you needed someone most. I am living proof. Why? You don't need them to come back to feel whole again. You don't need anyone's permission to heal. You don't even need to have it all figured out. You just need to take the next step, and then the one after that, and then another. Sometimes all you can do is survive the next 5 minutes, but survival turns into strength, and strength turns into freedom. So if today feels heavy, if your world has cracked open, don't give up on yourself. God doesn't waste pain. He turns it into power. He turns endings into new beginnings. You still have a story to tell. Your next chapter can be softer, kinder, brighter, and maybe, just maybe, your healing will help someone else rise too. Because you, just as you are enough.